Hello, fellow Browncoats, and welcome to another fantastically shiny episode of So to Speak. I'm with my good friend Michael Lake. Hello, Michael.
Hello, how's it going?
It's going great, but it's been a while since we've had you on a So to Speak episode. I mean, actually, I guess you were on that Pop Talk episode with the natural disasters.
That's true.
It's like back...
At the time of this recording, it just came out a few days ago.
Yeah, so it's going to be a back-to-back Michael. Way to go. No, but for real, how are you doing?
Been doing alright, yeah. Just hanging in there, trying to stay busy.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, I've been working like a dog myself.
Yeah.
But,
yeah.
It's alright. So, yeah, speaking of just getting by, we're talking about a show that just kind of was dead on arrival, but was resurrected like a phoenix from the ashes. As, of course, what year did it come out? The 2002 show Firefly, created by Joss Whedon. We'll get more into him later, but I guess, so the premise of Firefly is, like, you have this crew on a spaceship called the Serenity, and the idea is, basically, they're kind of just getting by. This is right after the this like intergalactic civil war that occurred, where it's like, yeah, you have this faction called the Alliance. They take over like the inner planets, and then in the outer limits, you have more people who are just trying to survive on these like newly colonized planets, and they're called Browncoats. Well, they were called Browncoats during the war, and during a very pivotal battle on the valley, the battle for Serenity Valley. We had Sergeant Malcolm Reynolds and his second in command, Zoe Washburn. I guess she wasn't Washburn at the time. She hadn't met Wash at the time. Zoe Aline, who are just basically, they're just outnumbered. They're completely squashed, and Malcolm believes that he can just push forward enough, but it's just not. They don't manage, and they lose the war. And so Malcolm makes his way as like kind of like a, I don't know, not really a hero for hire, just someone who can just, like, kind of like a handy guy. Someone who can, like, smuggle things. Because he's not, the thing about Serenity is, like, none of them are really bounty hunters. Well, maybe one of them is, but, yeah, they're just, like, this crew who, like, do small jobs to make small ends. There's no real long end game. And they're just, like, trying to make their way throughout the verse. So, they do that by any means necessary. But there is a limit. I feel like I'm not really being clear, but it's kind of, maybe it would be easier if I break down the characters first. So,
sure.
Our first character is Captain Malcolm Reynolds, played by Nathan Fillion. This was I don't know if this was his breakout role, but I think this was the role that definitely cemented him in pop culture.
Yeah, I think he's really fantastic in this role. I think his charisma and his kind of leading man qualities are really on display here.
I know.
I think this is probably, despite the fact that the show was not hugely successful on its initial run, this might be the role that a lot of people kind of like equate him with. He's done a lot of television 2 decades since, but I think this is probably one of his most beloved roles.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, yeah, you have like shows like Castle where he gets to kind of play around, and you can easily see like a lot of hints and winks to like Firefly. But like, it's just like, yeah. Oh, yeah, there's one episode in Castle where he's like, hey, I'm a space cowboy. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He's just, like, relishing it. I remember that episode. That was early on. Yeah, I mean, like, I think definitely Malcolm Reynolds is, like, the most three-dimensional character, because he's definitely flawed. He has, like, a lot of views that would definitely, like, turn some heads, and he's, like, he's fighting on the wrong side of the war, and he just never really managed to, like, move past it. He's very, like, I'm actually impressed for a captain of a ship. He doesn't compromise all that much. If he feels a specific way, he's gonna, I mean, he'll see both sides, but he has to make, like, really tough calls throughout the show. It doesn't always make him look like the nicest guy, which is important.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's definitely, I would say, the strongest character. And then we have, as I mentioned before, Zoe Washburn, played by Gina Torres, who I always remember from, like, the second Matrix movie. I don't think she was in the third one. I think she had like 2 minutes or something. She was like married to the pilot. Hey, what? How about that? She married 2 pilots in 2 different science fiction stories. That's crazy.
That's an interesting pattern.
I know. What a weird pattern. She's a second in command on board the Serenity. She's definitely like one of the most like emotionally tempered. Like I definitely think like she could hold her own against like anyone on the ship. Yeah. Like when she says something, like I wouldn't question her. And she's I don't know. She's doesn't have a whole lot of episodes where she's like individually like the main source. She's more like she's just like a very good foil for Mal. Because I always feel like their banter, it's just like, you can tell these people have been through a war together. And I always like that.
Yeah, their chemistry is fun.
Speaking of chemistry, we should also probably talk about her husband, Hoban Washburn. But most people just call him Wash. This guy's played by Alan Tudyk. This is definitely, I think, much like Nathan Fillion, this is a role that has always stuck with him since.
Yeah.
He always playing like the chatty, like, comic relief character. And he's been in so many science fiction shows and movies since, so there's that.
For sure. He's gained a reputation as kind of being one of those character-y kind of actors who just kind of steals the movie or becomes everyone's kind of favorite character.
I know,
I think it's definitely warranted. He's super fun to watch, and he's great in this show.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's funny because everyone in the show has their moment. Like they always have like a funny thing to say, but like with Wash, he's like the most regular comic relief character, and like he's like the navigator on the ship. He's the pilot. He doesn't really appreciate how much time Mel and Zoe spend together, and that definitely comes to a head in one episode. But other than that, I'm kind of impressed. Like the show only ran for 14 episodes. That's one thing I have to mention. It's And for some reason, like I feel like his presence is kind of like minimal for the most part. Like he'll walk into a scene and I'll be like, oh hey, and then he leaves. It's one thing I noticed. It's like I always feel like he's such a major part of the show, but he's kind of not.
Yeah.
Am I crazy or I don't know. It's one thing I noticed.
Sometimes that can happen. Your expectations can just kind of align in sort of a way that you don't realize that because this person had so many kind of little moments, it kind of feels like
that adds up to a bigger like presence.
A little more screen time than it was or something.
I mean, every Firefly nerd can like recite like the yes, of course, your sudden inevitable betrayal.
Yeah.
That's a defining moment. That's his first time on screen, so left quite an impression. Who else was on the crew? We also have Inara Sarah, played by Deadpool's girlfriend, Miranda Baccarin. Mm-hmm. And I like this. I like her a lot because Joss Whedon doing something way more progressive even today. It's like, hey, sex work is work, people. In this universe, we don't really have like escorts. We have things like companions. And the way companionship works is that it's actually like one of the most highly respected professions. Like it's actually like there's like a code of like. It's almost like royalty or something, and it's weird. It's like, for a companion, they're the ones who actually choose their clients. The clients don't choose. I mean, they reach out to them, but it's like, no. It's like a universe run by Bumble or something. And it's like, that's actually really cool. And it's neat that they actually managed, because she's not really an official member of the crew. She's more like renting space on the ship, so she can be like sent like travel throughout other parts of the galaxy and like meet people throughout different systems, getting work. She often complains to Mal, it's just like, can we go to a better part of the galaxy? I'm getting like nothing out here. And he's like, oh, and Mal has a few things to say about her lifestyle too, because he has like this rather regressive belief. It's like, no, you're just a whore. I don't like it.
Yeah.
That's why there's so much romantic chemistry between these two. It's sad. It's like for a companion, there is like that one person that they can actually like bond with, and like there's like a clause that says if they find someone that they want to spend the rest of their life with, and they can like leave the companionship behind. But she thinks it's Mal. And there's like some good banter here and there. It's like, oh, I think there's one bit. It's like Mal says something like, "Hey, can I get a massage too?" After he does that with Kaylee, or she does that with Kaylee. Why am I so bad with names? And she's just like, "Get out of here." It's playful between the two of them. I think they're like every scene with them is just gold. Yeah. Oh, speaking of gold, I freaking love this character. We got Jane Cobb, played by Adam Baldwin. Like, people say Wash is the funniest character. I think everything Jane does is just so, like, hilarious. I don't know. I mean, he's ostensibly, like, just a hired gun. He's a mercenary. And he's easily the most insubordinate member of the crew. I'm actually amazed Mal hasn't shot him, like, 10 times in a row throughout the season. Especially one thing he does very close to the end of the series. But end of the series, that's a sad thing to say, but like end of the season, I guess.
Right.
But yeah, it's kind of weird. He's a character that is pretty like unlikable throughout a good half of the show, but like you kind of get to like him later on. Especially when he gets like that special, I don't know what kind of hat it is. It's almost like a beanie or something, or like a toque that just has like that orange and yellow like design to it. I always like that. He reminds. Sorry.
He must have been like an impressive get for the show at the time, because I think out of this selection of actors, he was probably one of the more better known ones.
Oh really? For what?
Like he's been like Adam Baldwin was in a bunch of like '80s movies, like Full Metal Jacket and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, he was in Full Metal Jacket. Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not sure if that was any influence on his casting or whatever.
I'm gonna say when he looks over a corpse and says, "Huh, better you than me." I think that might have been a bit of an influence. Yes, that's a good point though.
Yeah.
He reminds me of every single one of my uncles. Take that for whatever it's worth. But moving on, we have oh yeah, my personal favorite character. We have Winnett Lee Frye, better known as Kaylee, played by Jewel State. Oh my god, my waifu. She's the ship's mechanic, and she has like this almost like unbelievable knack for fixing things, even though she's not even trained as a mechanic. And yeah, no, she's just so sweet. Like I don't know, like I love how she's like chipper in any situation. And yeah, there's some scenes with her and another character that are really nice too. Like there's like this like relationship path that she goes on. Sometimes it can be a little annoying because it's just like, dude, just get in your head. She likes you. I would just say yes, but you're just like head in the clouds. But yeah, she's also in one of my favorite episodes. I'm all over the place. I'm sorry, but like yeah, of all the characters, I really love every scene with Kaylee. And then there's then we got the characters who aren't necessarily crew, but they do join in on the pilot episode. So we have, so like in the pilot, there's, I don't want to get into the episodes really, but I guess I have to have a little bit of context here. So I guess as a way of like making ends meet, they do like, what's the word? Kind of like transportation, I guess. Like they'll take you to one planet to the next. So it's like, hey, hop aboard. It's like a cruise, except it's a dirty ship. Have fun. Yeah. So, so they pick up, well, technically 4 passengers. One is Simon Tam, played by Sean Mayer. He is an Alliance medic who, after getting like weird vibes that his sister, played by Summer Glau, River Tam, sorry, that's her name, River. He's getting like weird vibes that she's in danger, so he like investigates and finds that she's actually become a government experiment. So he breaks her out of her highly guarded prison and manages to escape, but they're on the lam, so they gotta go to the outer reaches of the universe in order to kind of like lay low. And he's definitely the medic of the group. It's like his biggest skill. He can basically heal anything, really. I see scenes where people get shot in like the guts or like right in the heart or something, and he can just fix it like no problem. And it's just like, are people just more durable after being in space for a while? Because that's like, It's crazy how many like things they can do without like dying instantly. But I guess it wouldn't be fun if any of these characters like left too soon. It's too much of a party on the ship of the Serenity. Anyway, I guess I should get into River too. So River is like kind of like this child prodigy that was taken advantage of, and as such, she spends the bulk of this series kind of not there. She has like this deer in the headlights kind of look at everything, but at the same time, she exhibits like beyond superhuman ability. Like she has like wicked fast like accuracy. She can like speak multiple languages. She can impersonate people. She can learn things ridiculously fast, and she's also like a total. She can basically kick anyone's ass. So it's like she's kind of a liability though, because her actions can kind of come out of left field. There's one moment where she just straight up stabs Jane for no reason, which leads into a. I don't want to get into spoilers, but it leads into some problems later on in that episode. I think she really comes into her own in the very last episode, actually. It's interesting. Every character in this show has at least one standout episode, and I think the last episode, Objects in Space, is the best River episode. It's like she finally snaps out of it and kind of comes into her own. I'm like, yes, I wish this happened earlier in the show, because now in a second season she would be like more engaged with like the conversation and more of the plot, rather than just kind of like standing around in the background. Which is probably the intention, but this is what happens when you have an unfinished series. And then you have I gotta talk about this guy. This guy's a class act. Shepard Daryl Book, played by the late great Ron Glass.
He is quite a bit of fun in the show.
Yeah, no, he's great. He's just another traveler who's kind of much like the rest of the crew. He doesn't have like any goals or anything. He just wants to spread the word of Christianity throughout space, because it's amazing. I guess that's still a very popular thing to do. And around, you think I wonder, like, this show takes place in like, what is the exact year? The exact year is 2517.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Really, it's just how some traditions always stick by. I think he's a good testament to that. Oh, sorry.
I was just agreeing with you. Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, and like, I don't know, like by the pilot, I often ask myself, is like, what's keeping this guy here? He's kind of like, I think it's because he finds himself to be like a moral guide for Captain Reynolds, he and him, because Reynolds has kind of like lost his faith after losing such a critical battle. It's like he wanted God on his side, but it didn't pan out that way. So I think it's like he's like Shepard's kind of like the anchor. It's like, he can't always be there for you, but you still have to believe. You still have to have like some like sense of like reason and conscience. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he's a bit of a mysterious character. We don't really know. We don't know a whole lot about his backstory, unless if you read a comic book from 2010 called The Shepherd's Tale, which I actually managed to get my hands on. Do you want to know his critical backstory?
Yes, I would love to.
Okay, excellent. So he was originally a member of the Alliance. He was on many like space fairs. He would just basically like command like massive space battles throughout the galaxy. I think at one point he refused to like open fire on like a civilian ship or something like that, or I don't know, it was something like he just refused to do something, and then he was demoted and kicked out of the Alliance and became like a criminal, just kind of wandering, trying to like make ends meet, barely getting by, struggling everywhere, getting like just constant violence in his life. And I think he just stumbled on the way of becoming a shepherd, and that gave him like actual clarity. And then he just decided to walk the verse. He's very much like Jules Winfield from Pulp Fiction, now that I think about it.
Yeah, that's a good parallel. When you put it like that, it makes
sense. When I explain his life story, it's like, yeah, he's basically just space Jules Winfield. I'm just gonna walk the verse. You and I just see things differently, my friend. So yeah, there's always like like I said, like there's always a good episode or two that definitely highlights each character. It's a very it's a very well-rounded cast. I think everyone always has like a moment or two to themselves. No one feels really left out.
Yeah,
Although I do
that
feel
was one of the most impressive things about this show. Um, Certainly for the time, like there's kind of a lot of big ensemble shows now, but like at the time, network shows you had like 4 or 5 lead characters, like if that. This has 9, and they all seem like pretty. Like they all kind of have their own place in the story.
Yeah,
they all seem to. It's a balancing act that's really impressive.
exactly. That's one of my favorite things is like the character dynamics of this show, which is something I think Joss Whedon was always strong at. Even like going back, I don't watch this show a lot, but I hear Buffy had a really standout like cast.
Mm-hmm.
Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and that would even lead into like other works he did, like the Avengers.
Yeah, most definitely.
And
I can kind of see how he laid the groundwork for something like that in this.
now that I think about it, have you ever seen Alien Resurrection?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was a script he wrote, and it's kind of funny because when I rewatched it not too long ago, it's like, yeah, we focus a lot on Ripley, and she's like a clone, and she's like in a facility that's like harvesting xenomorphs, because that never goes horribly wrong. But what's interesting is that there's this crew that boards this facility, and they're like smugglers. And each and every one of them feel like a Firefly prototype. You have like the captain, who gets killed off way too early, so I can't compare him to Malcolm Reynolds. And then you have like his girlfriend, who's like really like, I think the only thing she does is she gets like a butt massage or something. So there's that. But then you have like one character played by Ron Perlman, who's like literally Jane, just constantly confrontational, just constantly like hitting on all the females in a very like inappropriate way. Don't worry, unlike him, Jane gets better. But yeah, and there's even like a comic relief character who spends most of his time like, you know, like just kind of like working with tech and stuff, and it's just like, oh hey Wash. It's funny. It's just funny, like all the parallels I saw. Like he really wanted this show to take off, and I could tell like he's always had this idea in his head of just having characters in a spaceship flying around and doing odd jobs or whatever it takes to get by. I guess I should also mention, like, I don't want to mention every supporting character, but I want to mention like there's like 3 factions in this show that always seem to rub our characters the wrong way. That always seems to like be a fly in the ointment. So the first up, we have the Alliance. Naturally, they're kind of like the policing force of the realm, and they don't often get in the way. Like when you're in the outer limits, it's like they don't really spend too much time. But if you're in like the inner sanctum of the galaxy, it's just like the richest planets, the most highly developed planets, and if you need to land on one of those, they're gonna cause some problems. And they are ruthlessly trying their best to find Simon and River, going so far as to hiring these, I don't really know what their deal is. They're called the Men in Blue. Like, they're the guys who have those gloves, and I think they have, like, some sort of psychic ability. They have scanner powers. They can make your nose bleed, and then you die. They can kill you with their brain. So yeah, they're no good. Alliance is annoying, but sometimes like they encounter like a few that are a little bit more reasonable, or at least like, okay, you helped us, we'll let you be. Like that episode where they find that one guy in like an abandoned space station, and then he goes ravenous, and that leads us to the Reavers, the second faction. These bastards live in the outer limits, like far beyond civilization, but they're always out there. And they're basically people who've spent far too long in like absolute nothingness, and it like mentally disturbs them to the point where they become like basically space cannibals, and they're just like the most beastly, dangerous force outside of the Alliance. Because at least the Alliance, you know, they're kind of like they have at least some level of diplomacy, but like Reavers don't. They're just monsters.
Yeah.
And I remember after I finished this show, I watched a movie called Pandorum. I don't know if you ever seen that.
No.
Oh, it's a science fiction film. It's like a horror film. It's kind of like Dead Space or something. You just have this guy who's like just woken from cryosleep, and realizes that almost everyone on a ship is dead or have turned into like the crazy like basically Reavers. Like I noticed the parallel. Like Pandorum, it's like, oh yeah, these guys have Reavers too.
Right.
Maybe just maybe just don't be in a spaceship too long. You know, it's like playing video games. You gotta take a break every once in a while. But I guess sometimes you just don't have any options. And then the third faction, this is more like a lot of the side characters come in, are the people that give you the jobs but don't want to pay you. Or they want to undermine you and like leave you with much less. Or they just want to steal your ship. And there's numerous factors. We have people like Badger. He's like a smuggler who gives them jobs, and he's just like constantly giving them like the rough end of the stick. Or you have like this Russian mafia that really that makes Mal do some really like terrible things, but Mal doesn't want to go through with it, and then they become antagonists later on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And there's plenty of people where it's like, hey, we got a job for you. Oh, we have to pay you now? Well, that's just too dang bad. It's like, it's so frustrating. These people are literally living on nothing and they have barely any food. Just like give them their damn money. Oh my god, I also forgot. Christina Hendricks was in this show too. Yeah, she played Saffron, the rogue companion. This is one of her first roles, too. Oh my god. It's also worth knowing that this show was also the acting debut of Zac Efron. He is so baby-faced as young Dr. Simon Tam, and it's oddly perfect casting. I don't know. It's... oh, man. I remember I showed that to Veronica. It blew her frickin' mind that Zac Efron was on a show like this before he was the, the High School Musical guy.
For sure.
There's some interesting things about the world building too. There's two things I noticed. Anytime they're on a planet and someone offers them something to eat, they just immediately take it. Like they're not gonna be like graceful and be like, "Oh no, thank you, I'm full." Yeah. They're just like. Yeah. I love the one mission where they're trying to infiltrate a party and Kaylee just sees like a buffet full of strawberries and she's like, "Maybe our information's over by that strawberry tray." Why do you reckon that, Kaylee? It doesn't hurt. Or something like that. Oh my god, she loves strawberries. I love that. That's so cute. They're my favorite fruit too. So if we were in like the lobster world, we'd just be like, that's our one thing in common. That's a reference out there. What was another thing? Oh yeah. The entire universe is It's like a merge between superpowers. Like, the whole universe is basically run by the United States and China. So everyone has to be bilingual in some sense. So Joss Whedon came up with this funny thing where it's like, if the characters are like frustrated and need to swear, just do it in Cantonese. No one will ever know. And I'm like, that's a clever way to get through censors. I gotta say, though, for a show where it's like the universe is like half run by China, there's not a lot of Asian characters, to be honest.
Right.
I think that's one criticism I have of the show. It's like, yeah, you probably should have some. I think there's like, I saw like a gang like in the first episode, but that's about it. It's just like a little criticism I have. I guess I don't want to. I know there's only 14 episodes, but I don't really want to go through each and every one of them because I feel like I'm just gonna like be spoiling everything. But like Michael, tell me, what's your favorite episode of Firefly? What's one shout out you would have?
I really like the train job.
Oh yeah, that's a second episode.
The second episode, maybe I have heard some rumor that on the series' initial run, it was like aired out of order or something confusing like that.
Yeah, this is technically the first episode to air.
It was written as the second episode.
Yeah, it's not a very good introductory episode to this world, but the pilot was like the longest episode. So you watch the pilot. I think the pilot was actually the third episode because I'm looking at the U.S. viewership. The second episode has like 6.2 million views. The third episode had like Bushwhacked had like 5.47, and then it's like I don't know. It's looking like they aired the pilot way after. That's so freaking weird. Yeah,
I have heard that the studio Fox was not particularly
Yeah, I think we're going to talk about Fox a little after this. Tell me, what do you like about the train job?
So, but yes, I do like the. So, I am a fan of westerns, and the fact that Firefly is like a space western is something that appealed to me about it.
Yeah.
But I like how this really leans into a very kind of classical western plot, like robbing a train or having a heist take place on a train. That's a very classic western, and um, yeah, just the fun that they kind of have with that premise is really really cool to watch it unfold. Um, there's a line in there which pretty much sums up, I think, a lot of the characters' motivations. There's some really funny quip where they say something to the effect of like, "Hey, we're not criminals. I mean, we are, but that's not what this is."
Yeah.
And I think that just in that one kind of I probably butchered it, but that one kind of flippant quip that they say just really helps define the characters and the team for me, and I really loved that. I could see that. I could see a line like that being in like a modern MCU movie or something. It just was the perfect kind of blend of like cheekiness and character that I wanted to see from a show like this. And yeah, I don't know, watching a train heist kind of go down in space was really quite a bit of fun for me.
My favorite part of that episode is like they're hired by the Russian mafia, right? But then later on they have like a change of consciousness and they're just like, no, we shouldn't. We're basically stealing from a poor, impoverished like settlement that's just like from a newly formed planet, a newly terraformed planet. I think like we're taking these medicine from these sick people, and I don't think we should. And then they're like, okay, but we're gonna have this mafia on our tails for the rest of the time. And so, soon enough, they just show up, and after they defeat them, they hold one of them hostage. Well, they hold two of them hostage. One of them's just like, "Oh, tell you nothing." He's big, burly guy, and you think he's going to give Mal static, but Mal's like, "Man, I don't have time for this." He just kicks him into the turbine of the Serenity, and he just gets eviscerated.
Yeah,
that was like that's like almost like a prototype of like the Hulk smash Loki sequence. Joss Whedon just loves like cutting the shit, not being around the bush.
Yeah,
he's like, you know what?
Abrupt. I'm just gonna,
It's too cliche when a villain has his moment and the characters have nothing. They have nothing to threaten them with. So they're just like, fine, let's just get them out of the way.
Yeah,
love it. What's my favorite episode? I have at least. Oh my god, there's so many. Like, it's a 14 episode show, and I have so many memories from each episode. But I think my favorite would have to be like Shindig. That's the one where that's a very nice Kaylee episode actually. But it's an episode where Inara is basically hired by some companion, and he's just like, fine. And they have to smuggle the very same event that she's going to. And yeah, it doesn't go quite as planned, and eventually Mal has to fight like Inara's like client. And there's much like how you have a line that says, "Yeah, we're criminals, but we're not." There's a line where like after like Mal defeats the guy, they're like, "Oh, you have to kill him. It's trial by combat," and he's like, "I'm too good for that." But then he like stabs the guy anyway. He's like, "Well, I'm all right." Stabs him once more. I'm just fine. He walks away.
Yeah.
And Kaylee looks so cute in that pink dress, and I love the bit where she's at the party, and like rather than like just being there to be like courted by some guy, she just has like this. She just has like this long conversation with all these like other men about like engines and like machinery. And there's guys who come in like, would you like to dance? I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm busy. I'm talking about spaceships. And they're like, oh, okay. And then she like gets to keep the dress after the episode, and she like hangs it up. It was like a very special moment for her. I just love that. Another, I probably should at least mention like probably the greatest episode of the show, which is often held by fans in high regard, and that's the Out of Gas episode. This episode ostensibly explains it's almost like an origin story. It shows like why Mal loves the ship so much, how each member of the crew kind of joined over time, and how each of them are just as important to him as the last. And it's cool seeing it's. I mean, I kind of wish Wash didn't have a mustache, but I mean, other than that, I did like seeing these characters younger and like before they became like permanent members of the crew.
It's funny and kind of ironic, but usually a lot of shows do an episode kind of like that when they're like several seasons deep, like when they're kind of like long in the tooth. They'll do like a show like, "Hi, here's the flashback episode. Here's how we met." Like it's a very sitcom-y kind of thing. Like Friends did it, and lots of kind of shows of that ilk have done it. But this show only has 14 episodes that aired over the span of like a year, and they still managed to get in a flashback episode, and they still managed to make it like organic and quite a bit of fun. So,
Yeah.
like, it's really impressive how they pulled it off.
I forgot. Yeah, that is kind of a cliche in television writing, but I don't care because I want to learn more about these characters. I want to see how they came to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and we should probably, now it's probably the time we should talk. Speaking of episodes, we should probably say that despite being a show that only lasted 14 episodes, only 11 of them ended up airing. Which is yeah, they didn't even make it to the finish line. So,
that's shit. Like, if that were to happen to a show today, you would have the I don't know, the benefit of at least knowing it was going to dump on streaming or something. But like, did they? How long did it take to get those other episodes released? Did it ever come to like home video or something?
Yeah, I think it was home video. They sold the season pack, which I have. I always want to have like a physical copy of Firefly to show my support. But it's like, yeah, it's crazy. Like, there's like episodes, and like I remember there was something like I think the last episode that was in production was episode 12, The Message, and that episode has like this funeral at the end where all the characters like kind of stand and ponder, like, and they have like an existential crisis. And apparently the reason why they look so sad in that scene is because they were told that they're not making any more episodes after this.
Oh yeah, I have read about that, how they had to kind of soldier on with the show knowing that it'd be canceled.
Yeah, even though cancellation was imminent, which is a real pain in the ass. Like, come on, these people, they work so well together. I'm trying to like think like, why did this show get canceled? And a lot of that rests on a 3-letter word, FOX.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, where do we even start? So like they aired the episodes out of order. They didn't order many episodes to begin with. I'm trying to think. I don't have a whole lot of production notes as to what they did, but like they aired them on like the worst time slot available at the time. Something called like the network like death slot, where basically shows go to die, from what I've heard, and it's like when you there's just like when you don't show the 2-hour pilot and then you show like a bunch of other episodes like before then, it's like it throws people off and they can't connect as well. I mean, to be fair, like I don't usually watch TV anyways, so it's not like when you stream something it's like, oh, I can watch this from beginning to end. But like back in the day, it's like, oh, this is on, I'll watch it. It's not the first episode, but yeah, I'll stick around. But there's still like that clutterous kind of thing.
See, I had the benefit of just for clarity for anyone listening, that I never saw this show until like this year. So it's almost 2 decades removed from its original run, and I really really enjoyed it. I think it held up, and I found it quite a fun watch. But I also had the benefit of like knowing all this stuff about the show and just having the internet at my disposal to look up things.
Yeah.
And the way it's presented on streaming is in the intended episode order, which is not a benefit a lot of people got watching the show.
Yeah.
And I got to watch it, at my own pace. I wasn't watching it on a weekly schedule or a regimen or anything. I got to binge the show.
Yeah.
which
It's a very binge-worthy show, like, I gotta say.
it lends itself to binging very well. So I'm glad that it did find an audience, albeit a small one, but like it seems like a lot of things were stacked against this show becoming a network TV smash.
Yeah. I mean, Joss Whedon has gone on record as, like, a lot of people are like, sorry, so, like, how do you feel about, like, Firefly, like, kind of, like, getting canceled too early? And he's just like, it's like losing a baby. Like, I honestly feel like this just
Mm-hmm.
should have been so much more successful than it was, and it's one of the worst things that's ever happened to me, honestly. And yeah, he always feels remorse for it, but
Yeah.
there is a light at the end of this tunnel because much like nowadays when a show gets canceled or something bad happens, it's like, oh, the internet will come and save the day, and there'll be petitions, and there'll be like mass
Yeah.
like backlash, and studios will listen. Didn't really
Yeah.
they didn't really have that kind of luxury back in the early 2000s, but what they did have was DVD sales. So because Firefly exploded on the video market, kind of like another Fox show, Family Guy, which
I was going to say that's the first thing that came to mind.
yeah. So because of that, um, there was like I mean they still didn't pick up the show, but like basically what Joss Whedon had an idea for is, oh, I know I'll make a movie. And so that's how Serenity kind of came into being. It was fan supported. They were able to get a lot of crowdfunding for this one, and yeah, it's a lot. It's kind of a lot to talk about because ostensibly, how do you wrap up a show? Because it's not like oh, actually, I do think he wanted to make sequels to this, but unfortunately, this movie Serenity didn't really like. It wasn't a box office smash. I don't think it was a bomb. I mean, I could check, but I don't think it was like unsuccessful. It just wasn't successful enough, which seems to be a running theme here.
Yeah.
Oh, it had a budget of 39 million and it only made back 40 million.
Right.
That kind of hurts. But yeah. No, it's a pretty good movie though. I remember the first time I watched it, I was kind of lost, but rewatching it, it's like no, it's solid. I mean, there aren't too many shows that get the luxury of having like a movie, and there are even less that have like the benefit of actually continuing on with a story.
For sure.
So for a finale of sorts, I think it's good enough. I mean, I kind of wish they didn't do one thing to one of my favorite characters, but that was contractual obligation, not story obligation. I don't want to get into it, but yeah, that scene pierces my soul. It cuts right through me. Oh no, I'm technically spoiling things. Anyways, how'd you like Serenity, Michael?
I also had the benefit of watching it or being able to watch it immediately after I saw the show. So that's also gonna, I guess, provide a bit of a unique perspective as opposed to someone who might have been waiting a couple of years for it to come out.
Well, it came out 3 years after the show was canceled, so it wasn't that much of a wait.
Right. But yeah, my point was watching it immediately on the kind of coattails of Firefly was a lot of fun. It felt like a kind of fun way to wrap up everyone's story and arc and stuff like that. Funnily enough, I've heard that like Firefly, I've kind of heard it referred to as like like budget Star Wars or like kind of like discount Star Wars or kind of like a space adventure kind of made on a shoestring sort of budget, at least relatively speaking. But like, I don't know, there's something kind of endearing about that, and knowing that this show was made and supported by its fans in the way that it was, I don't know, it kind of like echoes into the movie in a way that I feel like it's fan service done right. I feel like it's like the movie that the fans deserved. So,
oh yeah,
yeah, I'm glad that they delivered on the promise of its very existence. And I thought it was a pretty fun watch.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's funny you bring up budget Star Wars because, like, man, every time I rewatch this show, those CGI scenes, like with the ship, uh, it's the best. It's the best they could have done back in the day, and they had to allocate their budget to so much. And like, there's like things
Right.
where it's like every time I see them on a new planet, it's like it kind of feels like you just shot this in the same desert. Like everything just kind of looks like the same wasteland kind of approach. But then you go into
Right.
like richer planets, and I'm like, okay, this is a nice set. They put some effort into this. Funny enough, this did win an Emmy for like best visual effects in
Oh
2004.
yeah.
So
Oh,
that
that's cool.
that's good. I mean, it got some
Yeah.
credit, so I can't knock it. It's just kind of like something I noticed. Oh, and that reminds me, there was like this like big hoopla over the fact that Firefly was one of the first like science fiction shows to actually depict space as like a silent vacuum. So like,
Oh.
there's no like sound effects or anything. There's no like when it flies by. It's just like silent footage of it like floating through space. Usually accompanied by like a good old fashioned acoustic guitar, like blow 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 doo doo.
Yeah.
That opening theme is great too.
hmm
You can't take the sky from me. Sonny Rhodes, and he's the guy who did the sound. Every Firefly, yeah, every brown coat, I should say, not Firefly
Yeah.
Firefly fan? My God, I'm just gonna say brown coats. That's the name of the fandom. If you love Firefly, you're a brown coat. So if you're one of us, give a big hurrah. But yeah, every brown coat knows that song off by heart, so it's nice.
Yeah.
Is there anything else I can say? I guess one thing I kind of want to say is like, even though it ended, there are a lot of other like shows and movies that kind of like feel like almost like a not like a replacement, but just something to kind of fill the void. Because like one thing I loved about Firefly is like after I finished like maybe 5 episodes in one night. I started having dreams about me being on the Serenity and just being a part of the crew and interacting with each and every character, and it's like this show touched me in a way. What's the phrase? It sparked my imagination or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, how many times do you think you've seen this show?
All the way through, I've done it twice. Once when I was in
Okay.
high school, and another time when I introduced you to it.
Oh, okay.
I would have done it more times, but the problem is I would often lose like the DVD case or like I've had at least 6 different occurrences where I've tried to introduce people to this show, and they usually don't make it past the second episode.
Huh.
Like they just they're tired of it or they don't want to see anymore. And it's like okay, that's enough. And I'm like, what do you mean that's enough? You don't want to watch the rest of this? Are you not intrigued? Are you not entertained? And they're like, not really. And I never see. I've seen the pilot so many frickin' times now, and it's just
Yeah.
because I guess I just need new friends. I don't know. I just can't seem to find anyone who appreciates it on the same level. But
Well,
you know that's
yeah.
okay.
Not everyone is gonna maybe appreciate something this niche, but like I feel like the people who do appreciate it really appreciate it. So
Oh,
there's that.
absolutely.
Yeah.
That's how the show survived. Honestly,
Yeah.
that's always cool. If I had to recommend things to watch, and if you do love Firefly, I would highly recommend Cowboy Bebop. Did you manage to watch any Cowboy Bebop?
No, I have not seen any of it.
Oh, it's funny. Like last year, before the Netflix show came out, I'm gonna have a side tangent on that. But me and Veronica, we basically binged the entirety of Cowboy Bebop. It's like 26 episodes or something, and
Okay.
it's remarkable. It actually feels a lot like Firefly. You have these disenchanted characters who are like just trying to get by. They do like bounties. So unlike the Firefly crew, these are like bounty hunters,
Okay.
and they're not very good at their job. I don't think they rarely ever succeed, but they always get something out of it by the end, and that's what reminded me of Firefly.
Right.
And Yeah, it's far less characters. There's only like technically like 4 or 5 principal characters, and it's all episodic, so you can just kind of see. You can sit through any episode and have like a blast.
Mm-hmm.
Very great, excellent score too. Oh my god, the score from Cowboy Bebop is like addictive. I might talk about that in our next album episode, but we'll see. Sorry, dry throat.
Cool.
Yeah, so there's Cowboy Bebop. I don't really recommend the Netflix show. It's kind of like just like every other time anyone's tried to adapt anime. It's just like it's not as energetic. It's not as like well paced, and the actors are trying, but I think it's the writing that brings it down. I mean, like it's like every episode's like 21 minutes, and they expanded it into 45, which is dumb to me. I don't know why.
Huh.
Just didn't really work.
Seems like a weird choice.
Funny enough, that show also got canceled after like I don't know 10 or so episodes, and there's a petition to bring it back. Like over 1 million people want this show back, and that astounds me. It's not nearly the same level as Firefly, but hey, maybe space westerns are just born to ride again. Who knows? I guess another show. I guess The Mandalorian is a little bit like Firefly. Like you have this character who goes like from planet to planet and like accomplishes a task or tries to help someone or tries to like just get by.
Right.
Like there's simple goals that they go by. I think the best example of something that reminds me of Firefly would definitely have to be like the Guardians of the Galaxy series.
I was gonna say, even though this predates Guardians by a good decade or so, at least the movie adaptations, I get that vibe from it. I get that kind of like very kind of chaotic, kind of funny, jokey kind of movie within a space opera western kind of thing. Like I don't know, it very much does feel like a precursor to the Guardians kind of movie for me, which I really appreciated. I think, and I know you're a fan. I'm definitely a fan, but
Oh yeah.
kind of finding similar DNA in a show like this to one of Marvel's biggest properties was a lot of fun for me.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's what you were saying when you're saying you like that line. It's like we're not criminals. I mean, yeah, we kind of are, but we're It's like that. That's exactly something Star-Lord would say.
It's very much like Star-Lord and Mal Reynolds and Han Solo and all these guys. They're very much like
and Spike Spiegel.
archetype. Yeah.
I just want to see it. I'm sure if Ready Player One ever gets a sequel, I wonder if I'm expecting we're either gonna have Parzival enter a scene, Wade Watts, and he's gonna have a scene where he has to talk to every iteration of James Bond. Or he's gonna have like a space race with every space captain in like pop culture. So we're gonna have like the Bebop and the Firefly and the Millennium Falcon. It's gonna be like a space race or something, or a space battle. Maybe that's more visual. Yeah. But I don't know. I'm probably making people cringe right now, so I'm gonna stop. But anyways, yeah. I know Joss Whedon's a bit of a dirty word in Hollywood right now, but even so, I that doesn't really taint the way I feel about Firefly. I still think it's like easily one of my top favorite shows. And I definitely I don't know. I know it got canceled, and I don't know if that kind of helped. I don't know what this might sound like a bit of a hot take, but do you think the fact that it got canceled too soon kind of cemented its legacy?
Yeah.
Because I feel like it's the one thing that always gets brought up the most. It's like, oh man, I wish there was more of this. But the fact that we got so little of it makes it a little bit more precious, if that makes sense. Like, I don't know. I feel like if this ran for like 6 seasons or something like that, would it have kind of like worn itself out and like just kind of became like just another like sci-fi show? Because I know I always want more Firefly, but at the end of the day, like if it actually had like a regular run, would it have would it have had such a legacy? Because I think of the cast now, and it's like every single one of them still does like sci-fi, and it's always referenced in everything.
Yeah,
they do.
The show might have not been particularly long-lived on network television, but like it is quite a bit of show, in my opinion. 14 episodes, and they're decently long episodes, and they're pretty like involved stories and stuff like that. So I still feel like it's a decently a decently sized commitment and a watch. And I think that, yeah, I do think some of its enduring quality does have to do with the fact that it is something that is not particularly long lived, but really well respected and liked.
Yeah.
We never saw a dip in quality because the show, never got a chance to prove itself.
Didn't really get off the ground. Yeah.
Yeah.
It almost works like a nice little mini series too. Like we said, it's very bingeable, and if you like shows like The Queen's Gambit or like Chernobyl, and you just like shows that kind of have like a nice solid beginning to end, and there's not going to be like a second season or anything. It's like Firefly is kind of like that. You just sit and watch that.
Yeah.
If you enjoy that kind of platform of television, then sort of works in that way. That not in how it was intended, but still. I don't know. I don't know how to wrap this up, other than...
We should just be like Fox and just cut it off abruptly.
Yeah. I just thought it'd be nice to have a little post-mortem on Firefly by going back and looking at some unreleased concepts that we're going to make future episodes out of. So,
cool.
Yeah. It's interesting. I've never looked at this list before, so we're gonna be in for this. We're gonna be in for a little surprise here. And I'm looking forward to your reaction too. So we have about 5 or 6 now. They aren't all episodes. Some of them are just kind of like like springboards or like ideas. So the first one here is actually this one was going to be episode 15 before it got scrapped after the show was canceled, and it's called Dead or Alive. So a lot of these elements were like kind of similar ideas that were taken from episode 12, The Message. So there's an Alliance factory that was bombed while the Serenity's crew was attending a nearby fair in the area. Captain Reynolds wanted to leave, but Simon, who's the medic, he wanted to help the wounded because there were so many people hurt in the incident. The suspected bomber turned out to be Declan Everton, a private that Mal and Zoe had once served with. I'm not sure if this is the same character that was used in that other episode, but I'm not... It's a similar idea, I guess. So it's just like it's a browncoat who basically tried sabotaging Alliance vessels.
Okay.
So an Alliance lieutenant called Lieutenant Quillen hires some bounty hunters to board the Serenity and search for the culprit. And but his former comrades hope to find him first, so it's like a race to find this guy. And despite the Serenity's attempts to lead them astray, the lieutenant eventually follows Mal and Zoe straight to the culprit, and they take him captive. When the culprit later escapes, Mal is forced to confront the man whose ideology was like shaped by Mal's like beliefs that like the Browncoats were fighting for something good. But now that it's a few years later, his opinions have completely changed.
Yeah.
Nice.
Okay, so
yeah,
it's an episode that's basically predicated on like a twist and some betrayals happening, that kind of thing. So,
yeah.
That would have been cool to see in execution, but yeah.
There's also a subplot where Simon has to save the life of an Alliance commander, and the problem is like while he's fixing him up, the commander is kind of like growing slowly aware of who Simon is, because Simon's a fugitive too, right? So
yeah,
it's like, I think I know who you are. And then the commander passes away during the surgery, and Simon kind of thinks that he didn't really do as much as he could have to save him, just so he could like make it out alive, kind of thing. So he could have healed him, but he's like, you know what? I'm just gonna let this one slide. I feel bad, but it's the only way. He thinks I'm suspicious, so we can't have that. What else is there to this? This is a pretty complex episode. I could see why it's the most fleshed out one, because it looks like it was a finished script.
It sounds like there's quite a bit to have been kind of leaked or uncovered. So maybe there was a time where they were kind of actively in pre-production for it.
In the end, Mal eventually defeats the culprit and turns him in. And although the Serenity crew collected the bounty as a result, the incident didn't sit right with Mal, who couldn't help but feel like he betrayed a vital part of himself. So there's some things going on in the episode. I'm very curious how they would have pulled it off, because like they would need like explosions. They need to create a whole festival set, and like it'd be like closer to the inner circle, I guess, because like of all the alliance that are like sitting around.
It sounds like it was priming to kind of lay some groundwork for maybe some character development or changes or things that could pay off in a future season or something. So
Yeah. Okay, this next one sounds funny. It's called Dog Fighting Ring. So this is an idea that Alan Tudyk came up with, because apparently of all the cast members, he's the one who came up with a lot of the ideas for the writing crew to like move the characters forward. Like he was like the most vocal about the writing on the show.
Okay.
And so one of these ideas, which he revealed in a reunion special, Alan Tudyk revealed in a pitch where Serenity had to capture and transport large feral dogs in order to sell them to a dogfighting ring on a moon where it's like half of the moon is completely surrounded in darkness and the other half is completely surrounded in sunlight.
Right.
Which is kind of like every planet or moon in the solar system. So okay. So Fillion mentioned that the main driving point of this episode was that they had this dog pheromone in some kind of container, and Jane was like messing around with the container and accidentally dropped the damn thing, and they all got covered. The entire crew got covered in the pheromone.
Yeah.
And so the whole episode, these dogs would be chasing after them.
Right.
And in both versions of the story, because there's like two different versions, but the story ends with River somehow being able to tame the dogs and communes with them, therefore no longer being like dangerous animals and no longer fit for dogfighting. Yeah. So it's like, yay, River, you liberated these dogs. It sounds so absurd, but I feel like it would almost work. I don't know.
Yeah, it could work within the universe. But
I'm curious, like, would these be like CGI dogs? Like, would these have to be like really like augmented dogs to be like really dangerous, or would they just be like regular canines chasing them?
Yeah.
It almost sounds like a Blink-182 music video. Okay, now this next one's called Captain Jane. Now, if you know anything about Jane, you know he's like the most insubordinate member of the crew. He and Mal like butt heads constantly, and there's plenty of instances in the show where it's just like Jane steps up, and is like, "Oh, I could be captain," and everyone's just like, "Yeah, in a million years." So yeah, another pitch. This was one of Adam Baldwin's ideas, actually. How his character would have moved forward. Now, it's not clear if this was like a multi-episode arc or just a single episode, like a one-off, but like Baldwin had the idea that Jane would leave Serenity and become a captain of his own ship and try to be he would try to be competitive with Malcolm Reynolds and do more jobs than him.
Huh.
And of course, he would fail rather spectacularly in this effort, and it would come to be that he would just return to the ship and be somewhat humbled by the experience. And of course, Mal would let him in, but he would definitely like bust his balls over it.
Right.
And it would have been Yep.
I do like that the cast seems to be kind of invested enough in their characters and their stories that they have kind of actively brainstorming paths for them to go on. It shows a really neat kind of appreciation for the job. So
yeah, I mean, I don't know too many TV actors who actually like. I mean, maybe there's like people like Bryan Cranston who like sometimes they produce the episode or they'll direct an episode or so. Yeah. But it's usually up to the writing team to come up with all this. It's unusual for a show where it's like the cast is like, oh, maybe we should do this with my character. I mean, unless it's The Office, where like some of the cast is the writing crew. So
yeah, The Office came to mind, but there are occasionally shows where they take I don't want to say a gamble, but they do once they have a certain amount of creative control once they found their footing enough. You do find some shows, some popular shows, where like a cast member wrote an episode or so and so directed an episode. So it's kind of a shame that that never really happened for this show, but
Yeah.
it seems like that's something they were interested in.
Yeah. So I have two more here. One's called the best idea, and the other one's called the worst idea. Which one do you want to? Which one do you want to hear first?
Ooh, I want to hear the best idea first.
Okay, good. Okay, so this one's called Mal's difficult decision.
Okay.
So Joss Whedon once wrote a treatment for an episode where Serenity would land on a wintry planet full of really kind, like, modest people who eventually attempt to steal the ship. Now, the reason for this is because the people on this planet are well aware that their planet is dying and they need to go off-world. And sadly, this is like a far outer rim planet, so there's like barely any civilization in that section of space. So, unless Serenity ran into another ship, the crew and their guests would probably starve or run out of air if they tried to transport that many people, like, off-world. So Mal has to, like, he just says, alright, let's just sleep on it, we'll decide in the morning. And then in the middle of the night, Reynolds, like, locks himself in the bridge while everyone was sleeping, and he just abandoned the planet. And the crew was, like, everyone in the crew was, like, hurt and angry at him, and they weren't able to, like, have the opportunity to decide on the matter themselves.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just because Mal, like, decided to take the choice out of their hand. And, it turned out as they're... The twist is, like, while they're, like, flying away from the planet and, like, on their trek, they notice, like, on their radar that there's not a single ship anywhere else, even though they sent a distress signal.
Right.
And Mal was just like, yeah, had we tried to save everyone on this planet, we would have all died. And ultimately, I made the choice myself so that none of you would have their deaths on your conscience. That's deep. I like that one.
Yeah, that sounds like a very kind of mature, kind of layered, complex episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you imagine that was like a season finale? It's like, will the crew mutiny the Serenity after Malcolm's decisions? Will he ever be able to live with himself? And I'm like, yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, it even feels like kind of one of those open-ended kind of series finales, potentially, had they written it properly. It could have been one of those kind of debated kind of endings, like The Sopranos or something, where people are like, oh, well, did this happen? It could have been really interesting. But
yeah, it's kind of ambiguous, you're right.
Yeah.
It fits his character, though, because he does have to make incredibly hard decisions sometimes, and that's definitely the hardest decision I've ever had to see him make.
Yeah.
Okay, so on to the last idea.
Cool.
This is the one that every single fan, after hearing this idea, they're just like, thank God this was never made. So Tim Minear, the executive producer of the show, he was told of this. Apparently, this was the first story that Joss Whedon pitched in order to convince him to write for Firefly, because the two of them have apparently worked on like Buffy, like the Angel spinoff of Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you remember this, but you remember in the pilot when Inara has like a syringe that she injects herself with?
Oh yeah.
Well, I don't know if she injects herself; she just has it. I don't really remember, but it was kind of like a seed that they planted. That inside the syringe is something that every companion has. It's like an insurance policy. So, in the event that any companion is ever sexually assaulted, the perpetrator would die a horrific death.
Okay.
So it's some sort of like disease or poison that every companion has in case they're like assaulted. That's the idea. So the premise of this episode was that Inara would get kidnapped by a crew, like a gang of Reavers, and Mal would come to rescue her, but as soon as he arrives on a Reaver ship, every single one of the Reavers were dead. And that's to imply that Inara basically got, like, railed by all these Reavers. and then they all died as a result, which is like, ugh.
Yeah, I don't think we did that episode.
Yeah, how would that even fly? That wouldn't even fly today.
I don't think so. No.
Like
yeah.
Yeah, I don't care how subtle it is. It's just like it's kind of weird because they even explain like Reavers will like desecrate your body whether you're dead or alive. They don't care which order.
Yeah.
So, but this is a cherry on this shit sundae here. The experience of seeing Inara brutalized in this way makes Mal have some type of epiphany. And as Joss Whedon says, he gets down on his knee, takes her hand, and treats her like a lady. Because we all know, like, Mal has, like, always had, like, this really gross... I know, gross, but he just always had this, like... He always hates, like, Inara for her lifestyle choices. So this would be the turning point where it's like, oh, I respect you now for what you've been through. It's a lot of shit. And apparently, like, yeah, Joss Whedon has been accused of using rape as a plot device in a lot of his work on more than one occasion. And a lot of Firefly fans said if he ever went through this, it would be, like, unforgivable in their eyes.
Yeah, the nail in the coffin of the show, probably.
Can you imagine if that happened in, like, a pilot? It's just like, ugh.
Yeah.
Duh.
Yeah, I don't think we needed that.
No, that's like one idea that belongs on the cutting room floor. I'm actually kind of floored by that.
Yeah.
Alright, well, thank you, Michael. Thanks for joining me on this nice little retrospective. Kind of want to watch the show again now.
Always a good time chatting. I was going to say, I really appreciate that you were the one who introduced me to this show. I know that I was 20 years too late watching it, but I really enjoy it. If anyone is going to take my recommendation, I would say check it out.
Excellent.
So,
I'm glad I was able to show you something that you haven't seen before, and I'm very happy you liked it because it's always nice to introduce friends to things, and when they get hooked on it, it's like, yes, now we can have conversations, we can have a dialogue about it. It's great.
Yeah.
And yeah, you know, the dark. What's a line I can end this on? There's one that's like, we've lasted this long, and that makes us mighty. And you know what? God says we're just too pretty to die, so it's not a strong one.
I swear by my pretty floral bonnet, I will end you.
Stay shiny, my friends. I'll go with that. Stay shiny.
Stay shiny.